a bustling city where dreams and heartaches intertwine, Clara stood at a crossroads in her life. As a single mother, she carried the weight of her hopes and fears for her young daughter, Sophie. Yet the past refused to let her go easily. The painful memories of her family, filled with harsh words and rejection, echoed in her mind like haunting whispers. When an unexpected message from her parents flashed across her phone screen, Clara felt her heart stop. They were in trouble and needed her help, the very person they had once cast aside. Did she have the courage to confront the painful memories and open her heart to the possibility of healing? Or would she choose to protect herself and her daughter from the wounds of the past? This story begins here, where the fragments of the past and present collide, leading Clara on a journey of forgiveness, love, and the quest for a true family. Join her as every decision she makes has the power to change her life forever. Clara sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the small white stick in her hand. 2 pink lines. The realization hit her like a freight train. At 30 years old, she had envisioned a different life, one filled with stability, a fulfilling career as an elementary school teacher, and a loving partner by her side. But now, everything felt uncertain. Her boyfriend Jake had already made his choice clear. He was out. With a heavy heart, Clara knew she had to tell her family. She took a deep breath and drove to her parents' house, her mind racing with thoughts of how they would react. As she walked through the familiar front door, the scent of her mother's cooking wafted through the air, momentarily comforting her. But the warmth quickly faded as she gathered her courage to speak. "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you," Clara said, her voice trembling slightly. Her parents looked up from the dining table where they were enjoying a meal. Her mother's fork paused mid-air, and her father's brow furrowed with concern. "What is it, Clara?" her father asked, his tone serious. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out, feeling the weight of the words hang in the air. Silence enveloped the room. Her mother's teacup clattered against its saucer, and her father's expression shifted from concern to disappointment. "This is unacceptable," her father finally spoke, his voice firm. "You need to terminate this situation. You can't bring a child into this world without a father." Clara felt her heart sink. "I can't do that. I'm keeping the baby." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't protest. Instead, she looked away as if the situation was too painful to confront. "You're making a huge mistake," her father continued, his voice rising. "You've thrown away everything we've worked for. You will no longer be welcome in this house if you choose this path." Clara's hands trembled as she placed them protectively over her still flat stomach. "I need help. I can't do this alone." Her father's expression hardened. "You made your choice. Now live with it." With tears streaming down her face, Clara stood up, feeling the weight of her family's rejection. "So, this is it? After 30 years, this is what breaks us?" Her father's voice was cold. "You broke us, Clara. Now get out." As she walked to the door, each step fell heavier than the last. She turned back one last time, memorizing their faces, her father's stern disapproval, her mother's silent grief. "When I succeed, don't you dare try to take credit for it," she said, her voice steady. "You lost that right today." The door closed behind her with a quiet click, a finality that echoed in her heart. In her car, she sat staring at the house she had grown up in, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She felt utterly alone, but deep down, a flicker of determination ignited within her. That night, as she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, mascara streaked down her cheeks, she placed her hands on her stomach and whispered, "It's just you and me, little one. I promise we won't just survive, we will thrive." Little did she know how prophetic those words would become, or how the next decade would unfold in ways she could never have imagined. 6 months later, Clara found herself in a tiny studio apartment, surrounded by boxes and the remnants of her old life. The walls were bare, and the only furniture she had was a second-hand table and a chair. She was living on instant noodles and the occasional takeout, but she was determined to make it work. Every day was a struggle, but Clara was fueled by the love for her unborn child. She spent her evenings researching ways to start her own online tutoring business, hoping to create a better life for herself and her baby, whom she had named Sophie. The thought of being a mother filled her with both excitement and fear, but she was ready to embrace the challenge. One afternoon, while Clara was working on her laptop, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her old friend Lily, who had been a source of support during her pregnancy. "Hey, Clara, I'm in town. Can I come over?" Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. Lily had always been a bright light in her life, and she could use the company. "Of course, come on over," she replied. When Lily arrived, she brought with her a bag of groceries and a warm smile. "You need to eat real food, not just ramen," she said, bustling around the small kitchen. Clara laughed, grateful for her friend's presence. As they sat down with bowls of fresh salad, Clara shared her dreams of starting an online tutoring business. "I've been doing some freelance tutoring for kids in the neighborhood and it's going well. I think I can turn it into something bigger," she explained, her eyes shining with hope. Lily leaned in, intrigued. "That's amazing. You should definitely go for it. You have the skills, and kids love you. What's holding you back?" "I just don't know if I can make it work," Clara admitted, her voice wavering. "What if I fail?" "Failure is part of the journey," Lily replied, her tone encouraging. "You need to believe in yourself. You've already overcome so much. Just think about what you can achieve for Sophie." Inspired by Lily's words, Clara spent the next few weeks working tirelessly. She created a website, developed lesson plans, and marketed her services on social media. Slowly but surely, her hard work began to pay off. Parents started reaching out, and soon she had a steady stream of students. As her business grew, Clara found herself juggling her time between teaching and preparing for Sophie's arrival. The late nights were exhausting, but the thought of providing a better future for her daughter kept her going. One evening, after a long day of tutoring, Clara sat on her bed, rubbing her belly. "We're going to be okay, Sophie," she whispered. "I promise to give you the best life I can." Just as she was about to drift off to sleep, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from a local education conference inviting her to speak about her journey as a single mother and entrepreneur. Clara's heart raced. This could be the opportunity she had been waiting for. With renewed determination, she accepted the invitation, knowing that this was her chance to inspire others and share her story. The day of the conference arrived, and Clara felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had spent countless hours preparing her presentation, wanting to convey her journey authentically. As she stood backstage, waiting for her turn to speak, she could hear the buzz of the audience. "Next up, we have Clara, a single mother and entrepreneur who has built a successful online tutoring business," the host announced. Clara took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding in her chest. As she began to speak, she shared her story, the struggles of being a single mother, the rejection from her family, and the determination that fueled her to succeed. The audience listened intently, and Clara could see nods of understanding and empathy. "I realized that my circumstances didn't define me," she said, her voice steady. "I chose to rise above the challenges and create a life for my daughter and myself. It wasn't easy, but every step was worth it." The applause that followed filled her with a sense of accomplishment. Clara felt empowered, knowing that her story resonated with others. After her presentation, several attendees approached her, expressing their admiration and interest in collaborating. Clara left the conference feeling invigorated and hopeful about the future. However, as her business continued to grow, so did the challenges. Balancing work and motherhood was becoming increasingly difficult. Clara often found herself working late into the night, exhausted but determined to provide for Sophie. One evening, after a particularly long day, Clara sat at her kitchen table, staring at her laptop. She had a deadline for a new curriculum she was developing, but her eyelids felt heavy. Just then, Sophie crawled into the room, her little face lighting up with joy. "Mommy, can we play?" Sophie asked, her voice sweet and innocent. Clara's heart ached. She wanted nothing more than to spend time with her daughter, but the weight of her responsibilities loomed over her. "Not right now, sweetheart, I have to finish this work," she replied, trying to sound cheerful. Sophie's smile faded, and she nodded, retreating to her toys. Clara felt a pang of guilt wash over her. She was working hard for Sophie's future, but at what cost? That night, as Clara lay in bed, she couldn't shake the feeling of being torn between her ambitions and her role as a mother. She knew she needed to find a better balance, but how? The next day, Clara reached out to Lily for advice. "I feel like I'm losing touch with Sophie," she confessed over coffee. "I'm so focused on work that I'm not being the mom I want to be." Lily listened intently, then offered a suggestion. "Why not involve Sophie in your work? You could create fun learning activities together. It'll help you bond and keep her engaged." Clara's eyes lit up at the idea. "That's brilliant. I can create activities that are both educational and fun. It'll be a win-win." With renewed energy, Clara began to incorporate Sophie into her work. They spent afternoons crafting lesson plans together, turning learning into a game. Clara found joy in watching Sophie's eyes light up with excitement as they explored new concepts. As the weeks passed, Clara's business flourished and her relationship with Sophie deepened. She realized that being a mother and an entrepreneur didn't have to be mutually exclusive. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, Clara received an unexpected message from her parents. They were facing financial difficulties and needed help. Clara's heart raced as she read the text. Clara sat in her living room, staring at her phone in disbelief. The message from her parents felt like a punch to the gut. After all the years of silence and rejection, they were reaching out for help. She felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of compassion. Taking a deep breath, she decided to call her mother. The phone rang, and Clara's heart raced as she waited for her mother to pick up. "Clara?" Her mother's voice came through, shaky and uncertain. "Mom, I got your message. What's going on?" Clara asked, trying to keep her tone neutral. We need your help," her mother admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your father lost his job and we're struggling to make ends meet. We don't know what to do." Clara felt a mix of sympathy and resentment. "You threw me out when I needed you the most. Why should I help you now?" she replied, her voice rising. "I know we made mistakes, Clara. We were wrong, but we're desperate," her mother pleaded. "We have nowhere else to turn." Clara's heart ached at the desperation in her mother's voice. She thought of Sophie, who had never met her grandparents, and the life she had built from nothing. "I need time to think," Clara said finally, her voice softening. "I'll call you back." After hanging up, Clara felt overwhelmed. She paced the room, trying to process everything. Could she really help the people who had hurt her so deeply? That evening, as she tucked Sophie into bed, Clara felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. "Mommy, are you okay?" Sophie asked, sensing her mother's distress. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just thinking about some things," Clara replied, brushing a strand of hair from Sophie's forehead. "Can we play tomorrow?" Sophie asked, her big eyes sparkling with hope. "Of course we will," Clara promised, forcing a smile. As she lay in bed that night, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of being torn between her past and her present. She knew she had built a life for herself, but could she really turn her back on her family in their time of need? The next day, Clara called her parents back. "I'm willing to help, "But there are conditions," she said firmly. "You need to respect my choices and my life. I won't tolerate any negativity towards me or Sophie." Her mother agreed, her voice filled with relief. "Thank you, Clara. We'll do whatever it takes." Clara arranged for her parents to stay in the guest room of her apartment. When they arrived, she felt a mix of anxiety and hope. As she opened the door, she was met with the sight of her parents, looking older and more vulnerable than she remembered. "Clara," her father said, his voice low, "thank you for letting us stay." "Let's just take it one day at a time," Clara replied, trying to keep her emotions in check. As the days turned into weeks, Clara found herself navigating the complexities of living with her parents again. They helped with Sophie, and Clara appreciated their support, but old tensions resurfaced. One evening, after a long day of work, Clara overheard her parents discussing her business in the kitchen. "I just don't understand how she thinks she can raise a child and run a business at the same time," her father said, his tone dismissive. Clara felt her heart race. She stepped into the kitchen, her voice steady but firm. "I've built this life from the ground up. I won't have you undermining my choices." Her mother looked at her, tears in her eyes. "We're just worried about you, Clara. We want what's best for you." "I know you do, but I need you to trust me," Clara replied, her voice softening. "I'm doing this for Sophie, and I'm doing it for myself." As the weeks passed, Clara began to see small changes in her parents. They started to take on more responsibilities around the house, and her father even helped with some of her tutoring sessions. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Clara felt a sense of warmth and connection that had been missing for so long. "I appreciate you both being here," she said, looking at her parents. "It means a lot to me." Her mother smiled, and for the first time in years, Clara felt a glimmer of hope that they could rebuild their relationship. As the months rolled on, Clara found herself adjusting to the new dynamics of her household. The initial tension with her parents began to ease, and they started to bond over shared meals and family activities. Clara noticed her mother taking a genuine interest in Sophie's education, often sitting with her to read books and play educational games. One afternoon, while Clara was working on her laptop, she overheard her mother and Sophie laughing in the living room. Clara paused, a smile creeping onto her face. It was a sound she had longed to hear, a connection forming between her daughter and her parents. "Mom, can we do a science experiment?" Sophie asked, her voice filled with excitement. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's see what we can find in the kitchen," her mother replied, her tone warm and encouraging. Clara felt a swell of gratitude. This was the family she had always wanted, one that could support and uplift each other. She realized that while the past had been painful, there was potential for healing and growth. One evening, Clara decided to have a family meeting. She gathered her parents and Sophie around the dining table, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. "I want us to talk about how we can move forward together," she began, her voice steady. "I know we've had our differences, but I believe we can create a new chapter." Her father nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We've made mistakes, Clara. I want to do better. I want to be a part of your life and Sophie's life." Clara felt a rush of emotion. "I appreciate that, Dad. I want to set some ground rules, though. I need you both to respect my choices as a mother and as a business owner. I'm doing my best, and I need your support." Her mother reached out, placing her hand on Clara's. "We're here for you, Clara. We want to help, not hinder. We're proud of what you've accomplished." As they discussed their hopes and expectations, Clara felt a sense of relief wash over her. They were finally communicating openly, and it felt liberating. In the following weeks, Clara's tutoring business continued to thrive, and she even began offering workshops for parents, sharing her insights on effective teaching methods. Her parents helped with logistics, and together they created a supportive environment for both Clara and Sophie. One day, as Clara was preparing for a workshop, she received a message from Lily, "Hey, I heard about your success. Let's celebrate." Clara smiled, feeling a rush of excitement. "Absolutely. How about dinner this weekend?" As they gathered for dinner, Clara shared her journey with Lily, who listened intently. "I'm so proud of you, Clara. You've turned your life around," Lily said, raising her glass in a toast, "to new beginnings." Clara felt a warmth in her heart. Surrounded by her family and friends, she realized that she had created a life filled with love, support, and resilience. As the evening wore on, Clara reflected on how far she had come. She had faced her fears, rebuilt her relationship with her parents, and created a nurturing environment for Sophie. That night, as Clara tucked Sophie into bed, she whispered, "I love you, my little star. We're going to keep shining together." Sophie smiled sleepily, her eyes fluttering closed. "I love you too, Mommy." Clara closed the door softly, feeling a sense of peace. She had learned that healing takes time, but with love and determination, it was possible to forge new paths and create a brighter future.